are Smart City Navigators, a podcast about innovation, sustainability, and new technologies on the market.
This podcast is brought to you by Navi Parking. Kalina Tyrkiel is a content designer by trade, psychologist by training, UX writing trainer, and lecturer at the major universities, such as University of Science and Technology in Krakow and Tischner European University. Currently working at Dock Planner. Let's welcome Kalina Tyrkiel in today's episode of Smart City Navigators podcast. Hello, Kalina.
Hello, how are you doing?
Very good. And how are you today? Welcome for the first time on a Smart City Navigators podcast. How are you?
Thank you. I'm super happy to be here. That's a great way to start my morning, because I told you before the recording, I'm quite of a morning person, so it's a nice little warm up for me.
We're gonna talk about UX writing in this episode because we are going to record 2 episodes. So let's just jump into this entire topic, because this is not very popular topic. When I was doing a research, it's not very popular. It's not, let's say, a mainstream topic, but it's very let's say, common topic for everyday users, for people who has smartphones, for people who use some kind of applications, software, or even browsing the web, right? Many people are exposed to UX writing, but probably they might not know what it is. So the first question is, what is UX writing?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. Pretty much all of us are exposed to UX writers' work. Just when you wake up, when you use your phone, when you log into your computer, everything you see that's written in there in the interfaces on this microcopy, that's the name for it, the small text in the buttons, in forms, it's the work of a UX writer. So in short, UX writing is the act of designing with words, but ideally UX writers work very closely with UX designers. Mm-hmm. So we're working on an interface of the application, a website, and we both decide of what the website is going to look like and what's going to be written in there. But the difference is that sometimes our work is about deciding what not to write or what we should write in other places. And I really like to use this story. Let's say you have a website and someone comes up to you and tell you, hey, we need to write this pop-up. And a copywriter would just take the brief and write the pop-up, while a UX writer will think in a more holistic way. Do we really need to use this pop-up in this place? Maybe we can convey this information in another place, or maybe we can just change the flow of the entire experience. But again, to give a better idea of what a UX writer might be working on, I think a very good example is a login flow or like a sign-up flow for a service. There's plenty of UX writing related work in there. When you create an account, you need to fill in a form, you need to click on buttons, and that's what UX writers do.
I think this is even deeper, not only about design, it's also about having some kind of feelings or trying to feel what people will feel while using your, let's say, software or application.
Right. And feelings are very much an important topic. And here we go, we get to the topic of voice and tone. You have different products with a slightly different tone. You have some products such as, let me think of an example of something that's playful. In Poland, we have InPost, a delivery company, a delivery brand that's known for its very laid back and kind of funny tone. But you have products that are super serious, super plain. So you can play a little bit with the voice and tone. And what is, I think, also super important is that the voice of a product stays quite consistent throughout the whole product, while the tone might change. So when you have a bank application and the card was declined, you are probably not going to be super, playful about it. You're not going to make jokes because it's quite of a serious thing. You need to solve a problem. But there are some places like success messages when you can be more funny, or you can play with words. So absolutely, that's the one thing is about the emotion, and another thing is about the user journey. The main idea behind UX writers' work is to help someone get to the point. So you have people who want to perform a specific task, like they want to send a transfer, they want to make a purchase, and your role, both as a UX designer and as a UX writer, is to help them get there.
I have one problem with pop-ups. They pop up all the time on many of the websites. You have ads, you have cookies, you have pop-ups. Do you design them as well?
I used a pop-up as an example on purpose because it's quite often that we actually want to avoid using a pop-up. I would say it's like a last resort in many cases. So I think this is like a main difference between like a classic copywriting way of thinking that you need to show something like in someone's face to sell them something. While I think a UX writing approach is more discreet. Like you help someone, as I said, reach a goal, but you are like more, you help them with their task instead of like just throwing something in someone's face.
So what's the difference between UX writing and copywriting?
If I were to describe it in just one sentence, I would say that copywriting sells while UX writing helps. And there's quite often there's also like this division, especially you can see it in teams within companies, that UX writers usually work in product teams while copywriters are part of marketing teams. So all this boils down to the fact that copywriters are more focused on what happens before someone purchases the product. This is quite visible when you're working on software, like copywriters produce product promotional materials, while UX writers take care of what's in the product. But I also believe it might be kind of risky. This way the experience might become very inconsistent. So we have like super nice, sexy promotional materials, and then you have a product that has like an entirely different voice. I would definitely say the difference lies in the mindset, in the approach that UX writers think about how people read, about the cognitive limitations as well. That's a very big topic, about how much information people are actually able to process and what's going to help them go through the user journey, or in other words, reach their goal, while copywriters are going to be more focused on sales techniques and marketing in general.
Let's say, for instance, you have a login pop-up in some kind of application. There's let's say one button says log in. There's so many details, included with this one button. People, we just click on the final product, and you have to think from the background. What's on the background with this one little button?
Plenty, really. And it's actually one of my favorite exercises to do with my students or with people I teach, because apart from working full-time at a health tech company called Doc Planner right now, and we're actually lucky to have a pretty big team of content designers, so I'm like enjoying working them a lot, but that's the thing. Coming back to the subject, I use the login and sign up exercise quite a lot as the first exercise for students or for people who want to get into UX writing, to help them see how many details you need to think about when it comes to just a fairly simple flow. And first thing is about whether to call it login or sign in, or maybe something even different. So there's the thing about consistency, about using the same names throughout the product. There's the thing about how we write it in terms of spelling, grammar, in terms of like translating it into other languages as well, which can be a super tricky subject. And another thing are the legal limitations. Sometimes when it comes to privacy or security, when people are giving you their data, you need to think about your legal constraints. And sometimes, for instance, the error messages cannot be as specific because there are like security requirements that you cannot tell too much. And I think it's a very good example. When you write an error message saying that the password is incorrect, sometimes you cannot say if it was the login or the password, because if you say password was incorrect, you are implying that the login was correct. So you're giving someone a chance to kind of hack the account. And in some cases, you just cannot say that. So you need to. And I think we're getting to something that's super important in this case. It's a highly collaborative kind of profession where you need to work with UX designers. That's the most obvious part. You need to work with front-end developers, which is, I think, quite beneficial for both parts. And I love my front-end developers at the moment. I mean, I'm really happy with the collaboration. So we got UX designers, front-end developers, UX researchers as well. I work quite a lot with researchers because this way I can see how, in my case, it's a healthcare company, but it can be different types of users. So I can see how my users interact, they're not really my users, how the users interact with the product. So we got researchers, we got designers, we got developers, then we got all sorts of business stakeholders I collaborate with. And then we have, of course, legal for legal limitations. And then I have marketing to align when it comes to tone and voice, because sometimes the flow starts at the landing page at the website, which is more of a marketing part. And then I need to know the exact flow the user will go through so I can make the whole experience consistent. And I think it's just a couple of examples of the kinds of people I can work with. And yeah, as you can see, it's very much of a teamwork thing.
So when I think about having a good flow with interaction with any kind of a website or software or app, one thing comes to my mind is that those applications are from a big tech companies. But who hires UX writers? Is it only a big tech companies or even small businesses, startups, and stuff like that?
It's changing quite rapidly, and of course, UX writers are more commonly found in bigger companies, but I see it's changing quite rapidly. And even if a startup cannot afford to hire a full-time UX writer, they can do a couple of different things. First, they can hire a person who's part-time this and part-time that. And this is how it started for me. First, I was a part-time product marketer and then a part-time UX writer, and then I shifted towards 100% UX writing. And this happens quite often in many startups, and some startups also decide to work with external UX writer with consultations, audits. They just ask for advice. They don't have anyone full time just yet, but they ask for external guidance. When I look at people who come to my training sessions, because there's this one training session I do quite regularly. It's a full-time introduction to UX writing training, and I've been doing it, I think, for more than 10 times. I had more than 10 sessions already. I lost count, honestly. But it's always interesting to see diverse groups of participants, groups of people that attend. And I get plenty of people from small companies. And these people are usually copywriters or UX designers who would like to learn more about how to write. So I get people from startups. I also get a lot of people from larger companies, later stage startups. And the range of industries is honestly pretty wide. There are people from the automotive industry, plenty of software as a service, SaaS companies as well, software houses too. When you have software houses and they create software for different kinds of industries, they usually have some content people, and they want to learn more about how to write for these apps. So we get startups, we have software houses, we get plenty of I see quite a lot of companies from the public sector as well, which really honestly makes me super happy that the public sector is putting more and more effort to learn how to write better. What else? I've seen an interesting spike in game development companies. And they are super fun to work with. They are usually the team spirit in game dev companies is usually super, super nice. And I just love the energy, and I'm always super happy when I see game development people coming, because I can also learn quite a lot from them. Games have plenty of written content, plenty of tips, loading screens, and things like this. So I would say video games, are an excellent source of UX writing knowledge if you want to learn.
How do you maneuver on the internet and on the software environment when you are user, UX writer, you see those applications, you see these websites, and you think, my gosh, this is so bad.
Okay, I never got this question in a podcast, but I was like secretly hoping I would get it one day because it's so funny. Like if you ask my partner, my friends, it's like I'm always at work. Like I cannot switch it off. Like I'm buying tickets to the cinema and like analyzing all these things. So it's fun because you have like a very you look at things and you see like a lot of details, and you can also like learn, get inspired. Like I have this huge. I use Notion to organize like pretty much everything, and I have this huge Notion page with with screenshots of things that are like super good or super bad or just caught my attention. So yeah, you're like constantly processing. Like I gotta admit that.
So you never stop thinking, right?
Yeah. You're always on.
Do you have any final word for maybe not only for companies but also for let's say regular folks who use the software or who have I don't know, maybe some personal blog or stuff like that, or even podcasts, what we should do to improve our visibility on the web throughout the app or throughout websites using UX writing?
I would say it's not even just about the visibility, but the readability, like to improve other people's experience with our content. I would suggest like reading a little bit about plain language principles, just the basic rules. You can check out different websites, such as the Content Design London website, if you're looking for content in English. But if someone even the Polish government has quite a cool website about plain language rules. Just plain language is the keywords, just learning some simple things like how long the sentences should be, what to avoid. I think it's going to make a huge improvement when it comes to content. And I think the final word is that it's not really that UX writing or writing in general is rocket science. I really don't like when people like gatekeep this kind of profession. I think like not everyone will become a professional writer, be it a UX writer or a copywriter, but I think everyone can learn some little things, little tips to write better. And it's not about like being, super grammatically correct. I would really say that it's like there are ways to improve your writing that are like available to everyone, and I'm really happy to see the growing interest in UX writing, and I'm also happy to talk about that.
Do you recommend any books or online courses?
Absolutely. I would say I always say it, so I'd say it again. The one book I recommend if you are to read just one book about UX writing, I think it should be Strategic Writing for UX by Tori Podmajersky. There are plenty of books about UX writing, but this one is my all-time favorite. There is also this book called Content Design by Sarah Winters, and it's more about like plain language writing in general. I would say both of these books are really, really valuable, but when it comes to UX writing specifically and tools and things like this, I would probably say that Strategic Writing for UX is the best one.
And any online courses?
When it comes to online courses, to be honest, it's not like my favorite way to learn. So I don't really have much that much experience with these. Well, I'm running a UX writing training myself, a recurring one, but it's like a live one-day course, one-day workshop really. And when it comes to online courses, I would probably suggest checking websites such as UX Writing Hub or UX Content Collective, and they have plenty of materials to look at. Another thing I really recommend is finding some UX writing professionals to follow on Twitter, because some really interesting conversations and really like funny stuff happens on Twitter. And you got folks like Christina Halvorson or Scott Kuby or Michael J. Metz. And like when you start following UX writing people, Twitter will just keep recommending more and more names. So you will just like fall into a rabbit hole of sorts. I think Twitter is really fun and really like it's one of the most valuable kinds of social media platforms when it comes to learning more about UX writing and UX in general.
And the last question is where we can find you on the net.
I would say on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is quite up to date. I think it's probably the best place because I add links in there. So if you're looking for up to date information or a list of things that I do, I'm about to do, what I did, I think LinkedIn is probably the best place.
Okie dokie. Kalina, thank you so much. It was really powerful episode, and I hope to see you again on the next episode of Smart City Navigators podcast.
Thank you. Looking forward.
Thank you for listening to Smart City Navigators podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Join the conversation by leaving a comment and sharing your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, in which we'll do another deep dive into a topic related to innovation, sustainability, and new technologies. See you next time.